In the summer of 2021, JPMorgan Chase sent a routine marketing email to 4 million customers it had just paid a fortune to acquire, and almost none of them arrived. The addresses didn't exist. The people didn't exist. The 4 million customers the biggest bank in America thought it had just bought were never real. And the woman who sold them that lie had already walked away with $175 million. She was 28, a Wharton degree, a spot on Forbes 30 Under 30, a startup the whole industry called the future. The only thing she didn't have was the customers. This is how she almost got away with it. How do you convince the most sophisticated bank on earth to hand you 9 figures for a company built on a spreadsheet of people who were never real? And how does a deal that size close with nobody checking the one number that mattered? Stay with this one. The lie is smaller than you think. That's what makes it worse. Her name is Charlie Javice. On paper, she was exactly what Silicon Valley loves. She'd been a prodigy for years. At 18, still a teenager, she launched her first venture, a platform to connect students with microfinance. By her mid-20s, she was on magazine covers and every Founders to Watch list in the country. Javice wasn't an outsider sneaking past the gates. She was the system's golden child, waved right through. Then, in 2016, came Frank, named after being honest, straightforward, frank with students. The pitch was simple and genuinely good. Applying for college financial aid in America means facing a federal form so long and so confusing that millions of families give up on money they're owed. Frank promised to cut through it. One app, a few questions, and you were done. Think of it as TurboTax for financial aid. Investors loved the story. So did the press. Javice gave the big talks, told anyone who'd listen that Frank had signed up millions of students who trusted her to fight for them. She became the face of a movement, a young woman taking on a broken system on behalf of the little guy. But the cracks were there early, if anyone had looked. The U.S. Department of Education had already forced Frank to change part of its website, saying it misled students into thinking the company was tied to the government. The Federal Trade Commission had questions too, about how Frank marketed pandemic relief to college kids. None of it slowed the hype. If anything, the hype got louder. And in 2021, the biggest fish in the ocean came calling. JPMorgan Chase wanted in. It wanted Frank. It wanted its young founder. And most of all, it wanted access to those millions of students at the exact moment they start needing bank accounts. To a bank, a young customer is a customer for life. The whole deal rested on one claim, that Frank had over 4 million customers. There was just one problem with that number. It wasn't close to true. Frank had fewer than 300,000 real users, not 4 million, fewer than 300,000. She had inflated the number by more than 10 times. So during due diligence, when JPMorgan's team asked Javice to prove it, to hand over the actual list of customers, she came to a fork in the road. This is the moment the whole thing could have ended. A truthful founder says, "Our real number is smaller. Here it is," and maybe the deal shrinks, or maybe it dies. But Javice had built her entire pitch on 4 million. Walking it back, weeks from closing, meant losing the deal of a lifetime. According to federal prosecutors, she didn't come clean. She manufactured the customers instead. First, prosecutors say, she went to one of her own engineers, a man named Patrick Vovor, and asked him to fabricate the customer data. Vovor refused. He believed what she was asking for was fraud, and he wasn't going to touch it.
And according to his testimony, Javice tried to wave him off with a line that would follow her all the way to a courtroom.
"Don't worry," she told him. "I don't want to end up in an orange jumpsuit." When her engineer said no, prosecutors say Javice found someone who would say yes, a math professor. She paid him around $18,000 to invent people, millions of them. He built the synthetic customers by blending in the data of Frank's real users so the fakes would look convincing, and later testified he had no idea what the numbers were actually for. Fake names, fake emails, fake addresses, a synthetic crowd built to order. Her colleague, Olivier Amar, allegedly went a step further. He spent $105,000 buying a list of 4.5 million real college students from a marketing firm. Not because they were customers,
but so the head count would match if anyone ever counted. And it still didn't hold up. The purchased list was missing most of the information Frank claimed to keep on every single user. Think about the math for a second. $18,000 to fake the data, $105,000 to paper over it, to sell a company for $175 million. It worked. In the summer of 2021, JPMorgan bought Frank. Javice personally walked away with roughly $21 million for her stake and was promised another $20 million as a retention bonus to stay on. And here's the part that stings. JPMorgan didn't just buy her company. It made her a managing director, put her in charge of student-focused products, and handed her the keys to the very customers she'd invented. The fraud didn't end the con. It got her an office inside the bank she'd just robbed. She had done it. She'd sold a mirage to the biggest bank in America, and for a while, nobody knew. Then JPMorgan tried to talk to its new customers. Late 2021, the bank launches a marketing campaign, a simple test email to the Frank users it now owned. It sends to what it thinks are 400,000 unique people. Routine, the kind of thing the bank does in its sleep. At JPMorgan, a campaign like that normally reaches 99% of inboxes. This time, 28% were delivered. Of the ones that did land, almost nobody opened them, barely 1%. A normal campaign sees 30. The numbers made no sense unless the customers weren't real. And once the bank started pulling that thread, the whole thing came apart. JPMorgan investigated. It put Javice on administrative leave in September 2022, then fired her that November. Then it sued, accusing her of fabricating data to close the deal, and it shut Frank down completely. But a lawsuit was the least of her problems, because the federal government was watching too. In April 2023, Charlie Javice was arrested and charged with fraud. Olivier Amar was charged alongside her. Her defense argued this was a young founder out of her depth, up against 300 bankers from the largest bank in the world. That JPMorgan had buyer's remorse and turned it into a crime. The jury didn't buy it. Prosecutors had built their case on her own people. The engineer who refused took the stand. So did the professor she paid. And the jurors heard that orange jumpsuit line read back in the very kind of courtroom she joked about avoiding. In March 2025, after a 5-week trial in Manhattan, Charlie Javice was convicted on 3 counts of fraud and 1 count of conspiracy. Amar was convicted right beside her. The Wharton grad who built a company on being frank was found guilty of one of the boldest lies in fintech. On September 29, 2025, she stood before Judge Alvin Hellerstein for sentencing. Prosecutors had asked for 12 years. He gave her 85 months, just over 7 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, $22 million in forfeiture, and restitution to JPMorgan of $287 million. The judge waved off the idea that a first-time offender deserved leniency. He skipped the legal language and quoted something much older. "Yours," he told her, "was not a just weight and measure." But even a conviction didn't stop the strangest twist in this whole story. Back in 2023, Javice had done something almost nobody expected. She turned around and sued JPMorgan, and a Delaware court ruled that the bank had to front her legal bills while the fight played out. So the bank she had defrauded ended up paying for her defense. By the end of 2025, that tab had climbed past $73 million. And buried inside it, more than $3,000 in first-class flights, $25,000 in hotel upgrades, a $700 dinner, a $160 seafood tower, and $530 in gummy bears. The victim was footing the bill for the charcuterie boards of the woman who robbed it. The number isn't what makes this one stick with you. It's how small the lie actually was. There was no fake miracle machine like Theranos, no fake blockchain, no complex technology nobody could understand. It was a spreadsheet, a list of names that weren't real, sold to a bank with armies of lawyers and analysts whose entire job is to check. And they didn't check the one number the whole deal depended on until after they'd wired the money. Charlie Javice is appealing her conviction. She remains, for now, free on bail. But the verdict stands. The company is gone, and the founder who promised to be honest with millions of students is headed for a cell. She almost got away with it. And the thing that finally caught her wasn't a whistleblower or a hacker or a genius investigator. It was an email that had nowhere to go. The court records, the indictment, and JPMorgan's own lawsuit that broke this open are linked in the description if you want to see exactly how the deal fell apart. Tap like if this made you look twice at the next big thing. And subscribe, because there's always another empire built on nothing, right up until the moment it collapses.